Good morning. Want to get started? Welcome everyone to First Friday Breakfast Club. I'm posing for a picture, trying to look good. I don't know if that will help. I'm Byron Huff, FFBC president. My pronouns are he, him, his. At this time, I'd like to offer any new FFBC attendee to introduce themselves. Seems like, oh, okay, we do have one. Go ahead. Okay, welcome. Well, I hope you'll come back. FFBC is an association of Oh, one more, sorry. Oh, wow. Wow, welcome. Okay, FFBC is an association of LGBTQ plus individuals and their allies formed in 1996 as a 501c3, making your contributions tax deductible. Since formation, FFBC has awarded over $550,000 for scholarships awarded annually to high school seniors who have done significant things in their schools and community to reduce homophobia and educate on LGBTQ issues. We awarded $23,000 scholarships at our June meeting this past June. The scholarships are awarded regardless of gender identity, sexual orientation, or other protected characteristics. This is all thanks to so many generous donors who recognize the value of FFBC scholarships. If you have not donated, I would hope you would consider. Any donations now will go towards our June 2026 awards. FFBC sends 2 emails a month, one for the newsletter, one for the meeting. If you're not on our list, send us an email or let someone know. And there's a form up at the front desk to fill out your information. Let's see. Oh, be sure and follow us on Facebook, YouTube. We have archived speakers, videos, and audio on YouTube. And you can find that on our website as well, links to that. And now, Rick Miller, would you come up here, please, as an announcement?
Good morning, everyone. Just a real quick thing about some information at your tables. Last spring in New York City at the Art Armory show, a woman named Diane King had quite an interesting show called Banned Books, Hazardous Materials. And she is now in Des Moines, and her show is on at Plymouth Congregational Church. So one of the handouts is everything that's going on with the gallery at Plymouth Church, all organized by the gallery, not by the church, but of course supported by the church. So you'll see a whole list of forums and things that are going on. It's involving all kinds of people, including Kevin and Molly Cooney are coming back to actually work with a panel and ask questions and work with that. So that's kind of fun. The big thing for us at the Pride Center is on Tuesday, and you'll see a separate one showing that we are actually doing a piece called Reading Out Loud. And we have 3 parts to it. At 5 o'clock is a children's hour, at 6 o'clock it's young adults, and at 7 o'clock there is a piece for adults. These will have 3 different readers with 3 different topics and books that have been banned. Some of you may not know this, but in 2023, of the top 10 most banned books, 8 of them were LGBT. So in my opinion, any LGBT book is a banned book. Now, I may be taking that too far because it may depend on whether you're a child or an adult, but I still think there are people in our country that do want to eliminate us, and that's part of it. So please enjoy, and I wanted to do 2 things real quickly. There's lots of changes going on at the Pride Center, and the board is expanding. And we want to thank Supervisor Matt McCoy for the recent donation we got for $5,000.
Well, thank you, Rick. And Matt's not here this morning. Matt is not here this morning, unusual. It's usually attends. So, this evening is Iowa Safe Schools Spirit Awards. I don't know if there's still tickets available for that or not, but it is at Capitol Square. So if you're interested in that, it looks like a lot of fun. They have a drag, I forget who it is, but a drag performer is the MC, so it'll be entertaining, I'm sure. October 11th, I think I have that right, is Saturday is National Coming Out Day. The LGBTQ roundtable, of which a lot of organizations, including FFBC, are a part of, is hosting a picnic at Mickle Center from like 12 to 3. There's more information if you go to Capital City Pride and go to resources. There's a calendar that has events, LGBTQ events. So I encourage everyone to go follow that and see things coming up for more information. October 8th is the Des Moines Gay Men's Chorus Silver Season Launch Party. That's at the Playhouse, so that could be fun. And there's more. Like I said, go to the calendar. Wade is great about putting things in our newsletter, so look at that as well. Our next board meeting will be Tuesday, October 7th at 6:30 p.m. Members are welcome, so let me know if you'd like to join us. And now Phil will introduce our speaker.
Good morning. I think the real question is this morning, we'll see if our speaker can answer why the deer don't cross where the signs are on the highway and they cross in other places. But anyway, Ryan Smith is the executive director of the Iowa Wildlife Federation, and it's the Iowa affiliate of the National Wildlife Federation. He completed undergraduate degrees from Iowa State University and the University of Iowa, an MBA from Globe University, and a JD from Drake University Law, earning a certificates in food and agricultural law and legislative practice. Prior career activities include directing sales and marketing management in a nonprofit organizations, special events, finance, and retail. Ryan has also worked in state government, special education, as well as agriculture, as well as policy work with the University of Maryland's Agriculture Economics Department, and was an Ackelson Fellow at the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. With the Iowa Wildlife Federation, his work is focusing on inspiring Iowans to protect wildlife and the wildlife habitat through the IWF programs like School of the Wild, Certified Wildlife Habitat, and Farmland Wildlife Habitat Certification. I'd also like to say I grew up east of Altoona, and Ryan was a neighbor of mine growing up, was a few years younger. And I actually got to watch him and his brother a few times when his parents had activities to go to, but it was always pretty easy because they would put him to bed and all I had to do was sit there in case they woke up. But anyway, I'd like to introduce Ryan Smith from the Iowa Wildlife Federation this morning.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to come and share a little bit about our organization. Just a side note, yeah, Phil lived around the corner. Out in the country, if you're within 2 miles, you're a neighbor. But yeah, we had a lot of fun with Phil when I was a kid. So before I get started, I'd like to know a little bit about you, if I can just show of hands or whatever. How many of you consider yourselves outdoors people? All right. How about, do we have any people who like to fish? All right, handful. Any hunters? No hunters? Okay. How about gardeners? All right, a lot of gardeners. Great. Okay, we've got a lot to talk about. I joined the Iowa Wildlife Federation. It'll be 3 years in November, and we've been around for a long time. So I'll share a little bit about what we've got going on. We're the affiliate for the National Wildlife Federation. So you all see some Ranger Ricks. We'll talk a little bit about Ranger Rick, but this actually kind of started with an Iowan. So Ding Darling was part of the Beck Commission with Aldo Leopold, also an Iowan. And they basically got together and we're talking about what are we going to do with our natural resources and how are we going to conserve habitat in the United States. So as a National Wildlife Federation, how many of you had Ranger Rick when you were younger? Okay, we're kind of seeing a little bit of a resurgence in interest in Ranger Rick. It's really fun to be able to go out and talk to people or go to conferences that are about conservation and learn how many people thumbed through a Ranger Rick, or that was the one thing that they got in the mail when they were kids. So I have more Ranger Ricks if you're interested in one. I also have some Ranger Rick Juniors. So Ranger Rick, aside from having just the one for school age kids, we've got a junior. There's also a cub, which I have 3 grandsons, and I got that for them, and they were terrified when they first saw it, but they kind of warm up to it. So it's a good book. Comes monthly. And so IWF, we were actually organized in 1952. So we've been around for a while. And like other affiliates, we started out as what we would call a hook and bullet organization. So it was hunters and anglers getting together, very similar to what we might see today with Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, Trout Unlimited. And we actually do some work with those organizations as well. We are a statewide organization. Someone asked me this morning if we were a state agency. We are not. We are a nonprofit. So we work in that NGO space and do some advocacy at the state level as well as at the federal level, particularly with the Farm Bill. And I'll get to our mission and vision here in a second. So this is just a list of our board of directors. I am fortunate to have a great board, very engaged, a lot of different expertise. You may recognize some of the names here. One person that I do want to call out on is Adam Jenke. So Adam is a wildlife biologist with ISU Extension and got us involved in an urban wildlife survey recently. So we were a subcontractor on that to talk with mayors and council people and city administrators about the attitudes about wildlife and what cities are doing. And it's been pretty interesting. Anecdotally, when I've gone out and talked to city administrators, one of the things that I hear often is our city citizens don't understand our wastewater green areas and what the purpose of those things are. And that is kind of, I think is really interesting. A lot of people will call and complain, say, why are you letting all these weeds grow? Well, they're not weeds. And we'll talk a little bit about why they're not weeds in a minute. Or they get calls, about, I was out on the trail and I saw a coyote. And what did you do? What did it do? It ran away. Okay, then it's all good, most of the wildlife that we see in urban areas, if you have small pets, bring them in at night, keep an eye on them. But most wildlife isn't going to pose any harm here in Iowa. So in Iowa, we have 1,100 species of fish and wildlife, and I've got some pictures here. The main thing for us in Iowa, because we have 90% of our land is in some kind of productivity or in an urban area, we don't have a lot of space for wildlife, particularly in corridors. And Phil mentioned one of the things that we've been working on is this farmland wildlife habitat certification, which mirrors another program that we have. Unfortunately, our federal funding was rescinded just this week. So that's going to be a bigger challenge. But one of the things that I'd like to impress on all of you is when it comes to that ag wildlife balance, our program was focusing on helping people who aren't involved in agriculture understand the kinds of conservation practices that can provide habitat, and ask people to support farmers who are implementing those practices. And that might be, we've all seen some of those things. Maybe it's prairie strips, or it's CRP is, of course, really good for wildlife habitat if it's managed correctly. But there are a number of other programs like upland wildlife habitat practices that farmers can actually be reimbursed for. So I just want to impress on everyone that it's important that we support those kinds of programs. Not only do they help wildlife, but it also helps things like water quality, which we all need clean water, and we all know what's going on with that. Also includes us. So like I said, with all of these practices and implementing more habitat, one of the side effects is we should have cleaner water as long as we've got those habitat areas in the right spots. I'm going to skip a couple of these because I kind of mentioned it. All right. So mission and vision. Our vision is to inspire Iowans to take care of wildlife and wildlife habitat. We do that in a number of ways with our programs and some of the projects that we're involved with. And we do this, we envision an Iowa with abundant wildlife, well-managed public and private lands, clean water and healthy soils that can be enjoyed by current and future generations, with a multitude of outdoor recreational pursuits, including hunting, fishing, and wildlife watching. So the first program I'd like to tell you about is our Certified Wildlife Habitat Program. And this program is designed to encourage people to build wildlife habitat in whatever space you have. It doesn't have to be a big space. In fact, there's been some studies that show even a 5x5 plot of wildflowers helps, of course, with all of our pollinators. So it doesn't take a lot. If you're in an apartment, there are certain varieties of plants that you can put on your balcony or on your porch that will help birds and bugs. And don't be afraid of bugs. Be curious about them. There's some apps you can once you have your wildlife habitat set up, there's some apps like iNaturalist, or you can even use Google Lens and go out and see what's out there. Now, personally, I live outside of town, and I'm very fortunate that I'm doing prairie restoration in my front yard, and I am now on year 6. And aside from having to deal with people yelling out their windows that I need to mow my lawn, or, my friends, I got a couple of friends that get a little twitchy whenever they come over because, I don't have a manicured lawn. I don't have any lawn at all. I have a little bit in the back, but otherwise it's basically rewilding. Has anybody heard the term rewilding? Okay, a couple of you. So the difference between rewilding and planting native. So both would fit within the Certified Wildlife Habitat Program. Rewilding is creating your space so that you can basically manage it in a very minimal fashion. When you're in town, sometimes city ordinances can kind of frown upon that. So, but there are ways to build that habitat and stay within the rules and regulations of wherever you're living. And we'll get to that in a little bit. So there are a few things that you need to have to become certified, and that is food, water, cover, a place to raise young, and then we encourage everyone to use sustainable practices. And with sustainable practices, the big ones are use native plants in your landscaping. It's getting easier and easier to do. And if you can give me a call, I can help you out with that. As far as if you weren't looking for seeds or plugs for your plants, there are a number of places where you can get those. Also, Iowa State Extension and DNR, and sometimes the city of Des Moines will have events where you can get saplings for your property. Are you from Johnston? Okay, so did you do that in Johnston also? Yeah. So So if you're curious, and the one thing that's nice about that is you can kind of experiment with some things that you might not otherwise. Um, I happened to pick up some pawpaw trees and some persimmon trees. The pawpaws have taken a really, they're not dead, which is good. But they're kind of struggling. I've got some wild plums, same. But my hazelnuts and my persimmon trees are taken off, which is great. So, if you're just not sure, you want to try it, you might contact one of those groups to see if you can get some free trees. And as far as when it comes to food and water in these areas, if you plant natives, then you have a food source, you have a cover for whatever animals come into your yard. And most of the time, the first thing you'll notice are the insects that move in, just a bigger variety. If you cut back on the amount of chemicals that you use in your yard, of course, you'll see more things like lightning bugs and or fireflies, whichever camp you're in. And then butterflies, the number of butterflies that I have in my area right now, I can't tell you how many different varieties I have. I see something different all the time. And then if you're curious about those things, like I use the iNaturalist app, but I've learned about milkweed bugs, beetles, different kinds of spiders, and all the things that move in. It's just kind of fascinating to watch. And of course, bees. I have so many varieties of bees in my space. They're great. So some of the reasons to get native, I already mentioned. Native plants are resistant to a lot of pests. And when I say native, those are the plants that are, of course, native to Iowa. And one of the things that is good to talk to somebody about if you're thinking about having natives is to either talk with the seed company or talk to an organization like ours about the kinds of things that you should plant. I love wildflowers, but I am well aware that I can't just plant wildflowers in my prairie. I need to have some grass mixed in there. And there are some natives that can become a little problematic also. So like I built my house on an old farm, and I have brome, which is the stuff you see in farm waterways most of the time. Engineers really like it because it lays down when it rains and gets the water off the property. One of the things we're learning with natives now is that with our changing climate and sometimes a lack of water, having some deep-rooted natives is very helpful. It helps with saturation, helps with flood control, and of course, it reestablishes our water table. A little bit about deep-rooted systems. Has anybody seen, I think it's Iowa State or it might be DNR, their big display with the roots, or been out to the wildlife refuge? Yeah, I mean, it is amazing how deep some of these root systems are. And so if you're a little worried about that in your yard, don't be. You can, dig up a big root ball and move all those plants. I've moved plants around my yard 4 or 5 times now. And they're very resilient once they get established. One thing to know about establishing natives is there's this saying, first year they sleep, second year they creep, and the third year they leap. And it is true. So that first year, don't expect to go out and say, oh, I have got a beautiful wildflower garden. It's going to look, it looks pretty bad. It's not pretty, but having those other grasses in there really helps and also helps keep the soil in place while those plants are trying to establish. Now, by year 3, you get just a beautiful area. One of our other programs, so in addition to educating people about wildlife habitat, we do support a program at a University of Iowa called School of the Wild. And that program is designed for grades 4 through 6. And what it does is takes kids out of the classroom and takes them to a nearby state park, county park, nature area. to learn about the habitats in Iowa. So that would be prairies and grasslands, wetlands, and forest areas. They also, if they have time, they may do some kind of pre-settlement archaeology, pre-settlement culture activities. But when they go out, they're still working on mastering their basic skills. So what School of the Wild does is plans this entire week with administrators and teachers, so that the kids are still following whatever math and English, science that they need to be following during that week. But they do it all outdoors, and they do it through identification activities. They do it through some outdoor skills. So I live near Thomas Mitchell Park, out in Eastern Polk County, and Pleasant Hill Elementary School was out there, and I was out there for their outdoor skills day. And with these programs, there's often a conservation specialist there, either from for this particular event, it was the Polk County Education naturalist. So she was able to explain a lot. So we're going through these activities, and the kids are super excited. Most of them have never actually maybe even been to a county park, or they are from families where they don't have an opportunity to go outdoors and just kind of interact with the natural world. So on this particular day, I was teamed up with a group of girls, and our activity was to build a shelter. And each group of about 5 kids was offered a tent, or not a tent, a tarp and some rope. And they said, okay, you've got 15 minutes. You need to organize yourselves, decide what kind of area you want to build your shelter, decide together how you're going to build the shelter, and then we'll see what your results are. So I was glad I was with the girls that day, because the boys, it was like Lord of the Flies. I mean, they were just feral and out in the forest. I feel like my group did the best, and I didn't intervene with any of it or coach them or anything. But they organized themselves about who's going to be doing what before they even went into the woods, which I was really impressed with. That usually doesn't happen. Now, the shelter that they built wasn't great, but they had found this big pile of downed limbs, and they put the tarp over it, and they said, all right, we'll get this tied down and we can work our way through the twigs and break them up and make our shelter. Not a bad plan. Much better than the other kids. Like I said, the boys, they might as well have just left their equipment in the back and just taken off. So, but the interesting thing is to watch these kids who may not be thriving in a classroom, and they get in a different environment, and sometimes they end up taking leadership roles. Maybe it's because they've actually spent some time outside, or it's just, it's different activities. It's a different way to learn, through kinetic energy and those kinds of things. So it's a lot of fun to watch. Most of those kids also end up staying involved in some kind of outdoor activity. And that's what we want. We want people to be able to get outside at a young age, grow some appreciation for the outdoors, and help take care of wildlife habitat. So I got a few pictures here. This is Jay Gorsh. He's the executive director for the School of the Wild. Jay and I talk probably 3 or 4 times a week. Some pictures of the kids, and on the far side, you'll see a student actually leading the activity. So the students, when they participate, they get a journal, and in that journal, there's a space for them to write down some of their activities. Sometimes it's just especially for like English skills, it's just the act of journaling, the act of actually reflecting in nature and writing down what you're observing and feeling. So there's also a place in there to do some drawing and things like that. We're able to help support this program with some of our partners here. Prairie Meadows has been a huge partner, particularly in expanding in the Des Moines area. We've had 2 community betterment grants that have allowed us to go into elementary schools that have not participated in the program. Kraus Group is also a supporter. And then one of the other conservation groups that helps with this is the Isaac Walton League. Is there any members of the Isaac Walton League here? Okay, just me. I'm also a member of the Isaac Walton League. And then in the far corner there, you'll see the REAP logo. And REAP is a program that is, it's a grant, it's a funding program that is administered through DNR, Department of Natural Resources, and provides some conservation education grants. Many first-year schools take advantage of those REAP dollars so that they can do that. They're only able to do that for 1 year. So that's why it's important for groups like mine to continually raising money and finding grant opportunities and finding donors that are interested in helping students learn more about the outdoors. So if you have any interest in that, please, actually with any of these things, please come see me or afterwards. So one of the things that we have on our website, if you haven't been there, is Washburn's Outdoor Journal. And Mr. Washburn helps us with, he's a former DNR communications photographer. And so he writes a blog for us. And there's a lot of really good information out there. So if you visit our website and check that out, he's also a fantastic photographer. So if you're into photography, you might want to check that out. Then we also have, to help with funding, we have a business sponsorship program. And one of the things that has proven to be of interest to businesses is for us to come in and kind of do a talk like this to host a lunch and learn so that we can share with their employees the things that we do, but more importantly, particularly with the certified wildlife habitat, we want to encourage people to build those habitats in their backyard and get them started. But there's a number of benefits that come with those packages. So if you have a business and you're interested in helping us out, please come see me. All right. So when it comes to membership with IWF, we are a membership organization. We do not charge for our membership. We want to gather people together that are interested in the outdoors and care about wildlife. So I'm going to ask you all to do that and sign up. And it is free. You can use the QR code there. You can go to our website at iawildlife.org. There's some materials on your tables that also have that QR code, has a little synopsis about some of the things that I talked about here. And now I'd really like to know how I can help you out. What are your questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anything is helpful, of course. So how you structure that kind of depends on your living space. Like I said, if you have a yard and you just want to try it out, I would suggest doing like a 5x5 plot to start with. And I can help with the prep of the soil for those areas. If you've had a lawn that you treated, consistently, there's some considerations to make there. There's also ways to prep that area that you're not using chemicals. Sometimes you need to. I mean, I'm not an anti-chemical use kind of person, but you want to use it as sparingly as possible and at the right time and in the right areas. So it doesn't have to be a very big space. And some of your existing landscaping, it's not like you need to change everything either. It may just be the addition of some natives, changing how you take care of your yard. One of the things I would like to point out, and it'll get attention every spring, is this idea of no mow May, which is a great concept. However, if you have Kentucky bluegrass in your yard and that's it, that doesn't really do much other than get longer. So, some practices that are are actually better for wildlife and pollinators is like leaving your leaves. And in the spring, if you have like some kind of flower that produces a stem, that stem actually provides an area for insect eggs and larvae and things to exist through the winter. So when you go to clean those areas out, if you can wait until mid-May, that would be great. Sometimes you can't do that, but there's, as far as timing goes for the care of those, you know, you can check with your city parks department. You can check with ISU Extension. There's a number of different organizations that can help with that. So does that help you? Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
People think about the helpful. I live in a townhouse association, which of course has a lot of limitations about what you can do. But most places will let you surround out 18, 20 inches or whatever your foundation. Of course, that becomes your responsibility. So there's some simple things you can do there. You know, whether or not you plant hostas, you just have, you know, don't cut them back in the fall and just leave them. I found one little space that the association let me adopt. It's just a semicircle, a quarter of a circle, not very big, but some coneflowers in there, some a bird bath, and a few things that add color, and they'll provide water, and it's a very simple, not much maintenance whatsoever. But that little bit, be surprised how many hummingbirds I see, how many other birds are sitting there coming using the bird bath. You know, lots of simple, very small things you don't have to necessarily create a whole prairie to be helpful.
That's right. That's right. And thanks for bringing that up. So the comment was about, you know, there's simple things that you can do that will help wildlife and does create habitat without even really being that disruptive to where, you know, your HOA or something like that. Even big pots filled with things like coneflower. Like coneflower is a very forgiving plant. It is really hardy. It's beautiful. There are several varieties that you can get that are native to Iowa. Like there's purple coneflower. There's gray-headed coneflower, which is yellow instead of purple. There's a pale coneflower that is still kind of purplish, but a little more lavender colored. And then, like you said, with bird baths, bird feeders, you're providing water, you're providing a food source. And if you're able to plant a shrub or something like that, then you've provided some shelter for animals as well. And like I said before, the things that you will see that you may not have seen since you were a kid, it's incredible. I have tree frogs that, I mean, I remember seeing them as a kid, but I've got them all over the place now. Or being out in the country, last year I heard the first bobwhite quail near my property in about 15 years. And that's just because we have some practices with when it comes to, you know, mowing ditches and things like that. There's just more habitat for them. So things will come in. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes.
So, last weekend, and the number of yards that were perfectly manicured and totally fertilized right up to the water line was frightening. I think Minnesota may have a rule of what type of lawn fertilizer you can use next to a water area. Does Iowa have anything like that?
Okay. So the question is about any rules or regulations about the use of fertilizers up to a water area, whether that's a stream or in this case, a lake. Iowa doesn't. And part of that has to do with our agricultural economy and the adoption of like what Minnesota has done. Minnesota actually requires buffer strips in certain areas, which would be wonderful in Iowa, you know, especially given the amount of nitrate that is coming off of our farmland, whether that is artificially added or it's in the form of manure that's spread or chiseled into the soil. Which again, you know, from a farming practice, I'm also a farmer. We have farms kind of throughout the state. But one of the things that is gaining some traction, of course, is our cover crops, no-till, some of those kinds of farming practices. But the use of native grasses and flowers like in waterways or putting prairie strips in field. So that would be instead of putting in a terrace, a farmer might consider putting in a prairie strip. Does kind of similar things. It allows for water to come off the field and infiltrate the soil quicker. Sometimes you can't do that, but it's often in tandem with some tiling and things like that. The edge of field practices, like putting prairie strips next to streams, that was part of our farmland wildlife habitat plan, is to have that implementation put next to either a river or a tributary to a river, just to have another filter from those nitrates coming off of this farmland. In an urban setting, so I live near Altoona. The city of Altoona has some retention ponds and trails that are right in Altoona, and they have some native plantings kind of around their ponds, which is great. My only, it's not even really a criticism. They'd be even better if they were wider. On a farm, what you would normally have is about at least 20 feet for a buffer strip. I would like to see that on lake properties and in town as well. It gets to be, it's a different management as opposed to a better management. You know, you have public, it's a public space, so you have some different things that you need to consider when you have tall prairie next to a trail, you know, so those kinds of things. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I knew Minnesota done the buffer strips for ag. I thought they done the urban, you know, you had to have a certain kind of fertilizer with, you know, phosphate or something in it if you were on a lake area, but I figured Iowa did nothing.
Yeah.
So, pardon me, on the water issue, came up yesterday in a conversation with someone about fishing and different things, and it's like, well, can you even eat a fish out of Iowa ponds and rivers and lakes? Was posed to the group. And we're all like, I don't know, aren't we like 49th or 50th worst in the nation for water? Am I right on this? Is this hyperbole somewhere, or what's going on with that?
No, and we don't talk about it very loudly. You know, because there's you know, and part of it is, I mean, we have neighbors that are dependent on our natural resources for sustenance, and particularly with fishing. Now, I love to fish. Personally, I wouldn't eat anything out of an Iowa river. There are things that you can do so that you can eat those fish. You know, you can, especially, and it depends on the kind of fish.
You're saying rivers are moving. What about ponds and lakes?
Ponds and lakes, it depends on the environment around those areas and what they're being fed from, you know, whether it's a creek or, you know, if you're in an urban setting and you go and you take a look at a body of water there, I mean, those ponds are, their function is for stormwater protection. You know, and you can walk by and you can kind of see how polluted that water is anyway. And oftentimes it'll be polluted with trash and those kinds of things until it can get cleaned out. And most of the cities are really good about cleaning things out. But when you take a look at the kinds of algae that's growing in there, and I'm not an expert on this. I don't know if you deal with that in your job or not, but yeah, so I would just be very cautious. I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but yeah, I'd be cautious. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So the legislature passed laws that allow mourning dove hunting. How has that changed that population? And as being a bird lover, and especially liking mourning doves, has that really depleted that population? Because I don't have them in my neighborhood anymore.
I'm not really sure. I'd have to ask the wildlife specialist with DNR as to whether they've noticed a change in that population. Some of it may have to do with what's available in your area for them, particularly food and places to build nests. I like mourning doves. I think they're great birds. If you're in, and if you like mourning doves, one of the things to do is to actually put up a feeder or even just a platform that's flat, and they'll build their nest on that, and they prefer to feed from something that's flat and elevated. So if you like mourning doves, I would suggest doing that. Might bring some in. Sir.
I grew up in Northwest Iowa, so the last 30, 40 years, there's been a big thing about restoring wetlands up there. And I know there used to be like, I think it was like a subsidy program. I don't know if that was state or national that would, give to farmers, whatever, to restore some wetlands, take that out of, crop rotation. And I don't even know lately, do they still do that? Is that, or have the subsidies dried up? Are the farmers just doing it of their own now? Or you know anything about that?
Yeah, I do. I'm actually on the state technical committee. I happen to be the chair for the agricultural land easement programs. What you're describing with the wetland restoration, the WRE, there are a number of different practices that farmers can sign up for and get help with building. I am a huge advocate for wetland restoration. And the reason is one of the things that my grandpa would often say. So my granddad was Neil Smith, the congressman from here. So, between him and my dad, who used to drag us out to Colorado every summer and do camping, and we'd go fishing and do all those kinds of things. So that's really how I got my interest in conservation work. One thing that my granddad always said is nature will always win. It doesn't matter what you do, you won't beat it. You can either live with it and figure out how you're going to do that, or you can lose. So with wetland restoration, the reason those wetlands are so important is it is a place for all that water to drain to. It has natural ways of denitrifying that water, and taking other nutrients, or allowing nutrients to dissipate or fall out of that water column before it goes on. And part of the way we farm here, of course, we do a lot of tiling to get water off of our fields quickly, so that we can actually get into the field. And I mean, it's a useful thing. I would like to see I'd like to see tile drainage districts force all of that water into greener areas like wetlands. I think another thing that would be simple to do is on our ditches, where a lot of that tile just goes into a ditch and then flows to wherever the lowest point is, right? In those ditches, if we were to plant more deep-rooted plants, we'd probably be better off. It would help slow down that water, for one thing, and give an opportunity for it to saturate into the soil. And one of the things with stormwater that becomes problematic is you need to do something with it if you get a deluge, and we're getting more of those all the time. I mean, I hadn't heard of a derecho until I was sitting in my basement one day for an hour waiting for it to be over. So there is money, there is funding right now. That is part of the conservation title of the Farm Bill. So I mentioned to a few of you that I do a little bit of lobbying more at the federal level, and it is specifically on the conservation title of the Farm Bill. So our Farm Bill that we're working under currently is from 2018. We were supposed to have a new one in 2023, and we're still working on that 2018 Farm Bill right now. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There was a lot of conservation dollars that were in the Inflation Reduction Act, and now that that has been abolished, one of the things that we were able to do is help get the conservation dollars from the IRA into the Farm Bill permanently. So essentially doubling the amount of money that's available through the different farm programs, like wetland restoration. It's time to wrap up. All right. Hey, thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure visiting with some of you. And if you've got any questions, feel free to grab me. The information for our website are on those cards. There are prints, if you'd like a cardinal print on the table as you leave. And I have more Ranger Ricks if you want those. And of course, there's stickers for everybody. All right. Thank you, Byron.
Oh, well, that was great, Ryan. Thank you. I grew up on a farm. My family, we were always taught to, take care of the land. And my mom's a bird and animal lover. She has too many cats, and but at any rate, at least they're still around. I do appreciate that. Taking care of our planet should be a priority for everyone. What we do impacts the future. The collapse of one species can have a ripple effect across the ecosystem that we often don't even think about. Even just a bug, like what's the purpose of that bug? Well, there probably is. It could be the food for some bird or whatever. And if that goes away, then what do they eat? They have to adapt in some way. As Ryan said, even something small can have a huge impact. We all have a vested interest. The Iowa Wildlife Federation offers tools that can help you learn how to make a difference. So with that, upcoming speakers next month, November 7th, will be Matt Blake, Iowa State Senator. As a Democrat, he works to improve issues important to Iowans, such as public schools and clean water. One that I want to bring up, one speaker that was not in the newsletter because we just found out or was able to get January 2nd filled. Matt Russell is Executive Director of Iowa Farmers Union. Clean water should be important to all of us. The farm lobby is very powerful, and some would argue are preventing rules, regulations, and laws that could improve our water sources. We had the Farm Bureau speak, and there was unknown to us, was a bit controversial, and this will be a counter to what the Farm Bureau's position on some things are. So I think Matt Russell will be very interesting and see how it impacts us and our environment. We will be putting additional speakers out on our website, so go there. I hope all of you can join us again, invite your friends, and thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.